Hey, I'm Vinny and this is Makeify. This isn't a project video, this is a follow-up to my tutorial where I showed how I make my woodworking plans and templates on the computer using Adobe Illustrator. I had someone comment on that video and wanted me to clarify how I dealt with designs that don't fit on a single page, how I make basically multi-page templates. So I thought I'd make this video to show you how I do that. I'm using the most current version of Adobe Illustrator, which right now as of filming is CC 2017. Illustrator is a great program, but it is a little pricey. If you're looking for a free alternative, I recommend Inkscape. There's a link down below. You can find it at inkscape.org. Okay, let's get started. So here we are in Illustrator, and I'm just going to start a new project. And I'm going to choose the print preset letter size paper because that's what my printer handles. But I like to change the units to inches because that's what my measurements would be made in here in the United States, and I like to work with that for my designs and things. So create that. And here's our blank piece of paper. This white part represents the one letter size piece of paper. And I could sit here and I could draw out, you know, the design that I'd want to make, but that's what my other video is about. So if you haven't seen that and you're interested in that, check out that video. There's a link down below. But for now, to save some time, I'm just going to open up the plans for my T-Rex skull lamp, and we're just gonna grab this design. I'm just going to paste it in here. Okay, I'm going to zoom out, which is Control and the negative sign. And zoom in is Control and the positive sign. I'm going to stick with PC shortcut keys. So if you're on a Mac, if I say Control, just know that that's the command key on a Mac. Okay, so there's our T-Rex skull design. I have a video on how I turn this into a lamp if you're interested, but we're just going to use this. And let's just resize this to make this whole thing a little more interesting. Let's go like, I don't know, 10 inches wide? Sure, that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to align this to the page. So go to the Align window, which if it's not open for you, you can go up to Window and make sure it's checked and it'll pop up here. So, oops, I gotta select it, click on it to select it, and then I'm going to center it on the page horizontally and vertically. Okay, zoom out, Control negative. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just draw a grid by just making some line segments using the line segment tool, and I'm going to change the color. I like to make my grid a light gray so that it's still visible, but it won't really interfere with the black outline of my design, where this would be my cut lines where I'd cut the wood out, so I don't want it to be distracting from that. So a light gray. And then I'm just going to make some lines and click and drag to make a line. And if you hold down the Shift key, it forces the line into 45-degree increments. Otherwise, you can have any angle, but hold down Shift, and that'll make sure you get perfectly vertical lines. And I'm just gonna make a line of some size. I don't know. We can change this later, and I'm just gonna make sure. I'm just gonna center it on the page as well. Okay. And the way I do this, I copy this, Control C, copy my first line, and then paste it in place, Control Shift V. Control V will just paste it in the center of your screen. Control Shift V pastes a copy directly on top of the original. And then I'm going to just move this around using the arrow keys on my keyboard, but I'm going to hold down Shift, and that will move whatever object in larger increments. If you just use the arrow keys by themselves, you move an object small increments, hold down Shift, and it moves bigger increments. So I'm going to move this, I don't know, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sure, that looks pretty good for this project. Okay. Now I'm going to copy this line, paste it in place, and move it 10 spaces. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then one thing you can do to kind of speed this up, I'm going to select all of these. You can select them all by clicking and holding, left click hold, and dragging a box. And anything that touches inside this box will be selected. So all three of those lines are selected. I'm going to copy those. I'm going to paste those in place, and I'm just going to move them over. Actually, I'm going to, in Illustrator anyway, if you freehand it, Illustrator has really good self-aligning marks, or you can see when you're perfectly aligned with another element. So align it to that last vertical line, and then I'm going to move this over 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that will save you a little bit of time. So I'm just going to do that again here. I'm going to copy all of them. I'm going to paste them in place, and I'm just going to move them over. And when you have lots of objects, sometimes getting it aligned to the one you want is a little tricky. There we go. And then move that over 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Zoom back out, Control negative. Okay, we don't need all of these lines. I'm going to delete that one, just hitting the delete key. There's our vertical lines. Now I'm going to make some horizontal lines. Same way. We're going to start in the middle, holding down Shift to make it perfectly perpendicular with the other lines. And then same idea, I'm just going to copy this and paste it in place, move it 10 spots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then same deal, just going to copy and paste these until I have a nice grid. Okay, so now we have a nice grid covering my design. And I'm just gonna select all of these guys, these vertical lines, and just clean this up a little bit. Move them down, move the bottom down. So now we have a nice clean grid. And then what I also like to do is make some additional registration marks. I like to make circles. So go over here. I'm holding down the left click key to change the shape of this. I'm gonna select the ellipse tool, and you can make ellipses by clicking and holding and dragging out your ellipse. If you want perfect circles, just hold down the Shift key, and it forces that ellipse to be a perfect circle. So we'll make circles that are, we'll just make them exactly an inch. And then what I like to do, let's zoom in. I also like to add in some lines. Oop, let's not select that. Go to my line segment tool, holding down Shift to make it a nice vertical line. And we'll go make a nice horizontal line. Okay, now I'm going to select all of these things. I'm going to group them. Control G will group it. So now all three of these elements will act as a single unit. To ungroup something, it's Control Shift G, and now they're each individual elements. But I'm gonna group them. And you can rotate an object. You go over to one of the corners, and your cursor changes to this curved arrow, and then you can click and drag and change the angle, and if you hold down Shift again, you're forced into 45-degree increments, which is what I want. I'm going to change it so that it's like that, so that it's different from the grid, just to help me align this after I print it. So okay, let's zoom out. So there's another little registration mark. And then I'm going to move this. I'm kind of just guessing where I will need them, and you can always tweak this later. So I'm going to add a couple of these. I'm going to copy it, paste it, Control V will paste. And I'm just going to add in these registration marks where I think they'll be most helpful. A lot of times I have to go back and kind of edit where these are after I kind of print out a test page, or after I kind of work on this a little more, but we're just going to add these in a few places. You get the idea, right? Okay, now we have our design that, will be cut out of wood or whatever, and then a grid and registration marks. What I like to do is select my design and then right click on it and go to Arrange and Bring to Front. And that just raises these black lines above the gray lines. It's a minor deal, but it makes it easier to see those lines when I'm trying to cut something out. Okay, now I'm going to select everything, and I can either do that by, again, left clicking, holding, and dragging a box around everything, and that'll select everything. Or Control A, select all, and it selects everything. And I'm going to just group all of these together. Control G. And that'll be easier to move this around, because what I'm going to do, I don't know how many pages this is going to span. Probably 6. So I like to make a separate layer for each page in my design. So we'll rename this page 1. And then I'm going to make 5 additional pages for a total of 6. And just rename them just so I know. Because oftentimes I will have other layers. I often have a layer for just my working design that I can play around with. And I usually will have like a title page, and there might be a page, or excuse me, a layer that I'm just messing with some aspect of the design. And so we'll just label these so we know what they are. And actually, I'm just clicking and dragging these to reorder them, just so it makes a little more sense to me. We'll go back to page 1 here, and I'm going to move this. I'm going to move this to where I think it needs to be. Oh, you know, this whole thing, this whole front end will fit on 1 page. So I'm just going to, we might not need 6 pages, but I'm going to just position this so that the whole thing is kind of on this page. And you got to be aware that printers, well, most printers won't print all the way, to the edge of the page. You need to leave a margin. So I'm just kind of eyeballing kind of what I know my printer can handle. And I think that'll all fit. I think that's okay. Okay, so that's page 1. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, Control C. I'm going to lock this this layer. I can click here, and that locks this layer, page 1, where I can't accidentally mess it up or move it around or anything, because we're done with it. And then I'm going to hide it. I'm going to toggle the visibility off. And then I'm going to go down to page 2. I'm going to paste that in place, Control-Shift-V. So that's exactly the same as page 1, but now I'm going to move this onto, so that page 2 is a little different. So this is where your registration marks, you got to pay attention to where they are. These registration marks were on page 1, so I want them to also appear on page 2 so that later I can line up page 1 and page 2. This design's a little weird, so this is going to be a little funky, but that's probably good for page 2. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to lock page 2. I'm going to hide page 2. Go to page 3 and paste in place, Control-Shift-V, and then move it over. And again, I'm using Shift and the arrow keys. You can drag it around or whatever. Various ways of moving it around. And so so page 3 needs to have kind of the top of the head here. And I want these registration marks also to appear on page 3. Okay, that's probably okay. So I'm going to copy it, lock it, hide it, go to page 4, paste in place. And page 4, we're going to move it up now. Hopefully I can get, yeah, that should work. I'm going to have to move this over. Something like that. Copy it, Control-C. Hide it, or excuse me, lock it, hide it, go to page 5, paste in place, and move it over. Okay, that should work. So I don't need a page 6, so I can just delete that. Page 5 is good, so we'll lock that. So now, what we have, we're going to toggle visibility, so see, we have a page where all aspects of the design end up on at least 1 page. It's as simple as that. So now what I would do is you could just print this straight from Illustrator. So make sure just 1 page is visible at a time. Just print it from here, and what we'll print is only what's under this white thing and what's currently visible. So you print page 1, turn off visibility, turn on visibility for page 2, print that, etc., etc. But I like making my templates and plans available for free. People can download them. If you want to do that, or if you want to email this to someone or whatever, I I think the best way of doing that is to make one single PDF that contains all of these pages that can be emailed or uploaded or whatever. So the way I do it, and it might not be the best way, if someone knows a better way, please leave a comment. I would love to know. But what I do is I'll make one page visible at a time, and I'll go up to File, and I'll go to Save As, and we'll change this from Adobe Illustrator native file format to PDF. I'm going to rename this page 1, and we'll just save that. It's going to ask us, some questions about the PDF. I like to change the preset to high quality print because I expect this to be printed out. So high quality print. This box is checked by default. It's preserve Illustrator editing capabilities, and you need to uncheck that. It will make your PDF, you won't be able to edit your PDF later, but if you keep this checked, anyone that opens your PDF on a Mac will be able to see all these layers visible at the same time, even though they're currently only one page is visible at a time. I learned this the hard way, so if you plan on sharing your templates, uncheck this box, or otherwise people on Mac are not going to be able to use your templates. So we'll do that, we'll save as PDF. So that just saved page 1, and it just saved basically what's under, what's on that page. None of this other stuff got saved. So then we'll toggle page 2 to be visible and go to Save As, and we'll save page 2 as a separate PDF. Same deal. And I just do that for all pages, and this is a little annoying, especially for large templates, but okay, so they are all saved as separate PDFs, each page is, and you'll want to save this now, or probably sooner, as an Adobe Illustrator file. We'll just call this something. That way you can come back and you can edit this if you need to later on, because a PDF isn't editable. Even if you import it into Illustrator, you're going to lose everything that's not on the page. All these lines will be lost. So you want to save this as an Adobe Illustrator native file so that you can open up later and tweak it or edit it or whatever you might need to do. Which oftentimes I make edits after I print it out and I realize, ooh, I need to change the way it's oriented, or add a page or whatever, change where the registration marks or whatever like that. So now this is the part that I don't know a free way of doing this. What we want to do for convenience sake is combine all 5 of these pages, these separate PDFs, into one single PDF so that it's easier to share and whatnot. And the only way I know how to do this is by using Adobe Acrobat Pro, which I have because I subscribe to the whole Adobe Creative Cloud suite of software. If someone knows a free way to combine PDFs, please leave a comment. I'd love to know, because this is the only way I know how to do it, is using Adobe Acrobat Pro. The free version of Adobe Acrobat can't do this, or won't do this. You need the paid version. So what you do is you just open up Acrobat Pro and you go to Tools, Combine Files, and then it's as easy as just dragging and dropping all your files into here. And then from here you can rearrange them if they're not in the right order or whatever. These are in the right order. Hit Combine, and it all gets combined into one file, which, let's zoom out a little more, which you can see is composed of now 5 separate pages, all within one file, which is nice. So we're going to save that as, whatever, my example template, right? And then this can be emailed to other people or uploaded or, whatever, shared. And it's nice and convenient and should be a pretty small file size. Okay, so then I'm going to print this out straight from here, and then I'm going to show you how I tape these together to make my final cutting template. So now we have my 5 pages all printed out. And now it's just a matter of lining up the grid and the registration marks. And this one is a little weird because, let's do it this way, because it fits on 5 pages and not like an even number of pages. But I'm just lining up the registration marks. I find the registration marks to be more helpful than the grid, but the grid is helpful a little bit, and so is just matching up the lines of your design. It also helps if you can hold this up to like a window, and you can kind of see through the sheets, or hold it up to a bright light, like my studio lights. So you just line up the lines and the registration marks, and I like to tape these together using just some pieces of packing tape. Ooh, yeah, that's good. Ooh, I just ran out of packing tape. You just line up the design, and you'll notice, my printer didn't print all the way to the edge here. So, depending on which, I could put this one on top, and then I'll be missing, that. You can kind of see through the pages a little bit, even when you go to cut out, but that's kind of a critical cut here, so I'm going to put this one on top so that kind of the tricky parts, all those lines are nice and solid. That's easy. I can just, if I'm cutting this out on a bandsaw or whatever, I can connect that in my brain. And then, these pages are kind of floppy, one page on top of the other. One thing I'll do sometimes is the bottom one, you don't really need the 2 copies, so you can cut out the excess, with scissors. I would of course be way more careful than this, but you can cut out excess parts so you don't have 3 pages, 3 layers. That's one thing I do. You can also, if you want, you could also tape it from the back side, and that'll hold that down. But I typically use spray adhesive to glue these down onto wood, so I usually, just taping on the front is usually good enough. And there we go. Now we have a nice large cutting template that spans multiple pages. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. You can also subscribe to keep up to date with my newest videos. I'd like to thank my top 2 Patreon supporters, Michael Thomas and Bradley. Thank you guys, and thank you for watching. Hey, I'm Vinny, and this is Makeify. This isn't a project video. This is a follow-up to my my something or other. Illustrator is a great program, but it's not. Inkscape will do. Take the main ideas I'm about to show you and use it in a variety. If you're not using Illustrator, some of the specific. Oh my gosh. Or I'm also on Twitter at. That went okay.